to my channel, and this is a video about the 5 things that I did in my 30s so that I could live a life of wellness and vitality and health in my 40s and just be fabulous, child. That's because that's what we're here to do. Okay, I've already done the previous video is the first thing that I did, which was prioritizing my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual wellness. And I just talk about what led up to that and allowed me to then prioritize that. So this is the second step, because this is a progression. The second step of what I did in my 30s and what I was inspired to do in my 30s. And because I want to keep these videos short, if you want to kind of hear the origin story and my inspiration story of what led me in my 30s to start on this path, you can go to the very first video and I kind of break that down a little bit. But I want to keep these short so that y'all can, first of all, because I can talk, child. I can talk. But because I want it to be something palatable that you can kind of sit with and absorb. And since it's 5 things, I don't want it to be too long. So this is the second thing that I did in order to prioritize wellness in my life in my 30s so that I could experience in a fabulous way in my 40s. I had to learn to put myself first without apology. And that was not easy for me in my 30s, growing up in a household and growing up in a way that basically trained and taught me how to be sacrificial to everything and everyone else, and to deprioritize myself and not be within my full awareness of who I am and live my life in that awareness. So I had to learn how to prioritize myself and put myself first without apology. So the first thing that led into that was I had to first acknowledge, and that's what I talked about in the previous video, acknowledging that I was abandoning myself all the time in order to meet the needs of others, because I was a people pleaser, perfectionist, decentralized. I like that term, decentralized, because that's really what when I'm talking about my behavior as someone who was sacrificing, I was decentralized, meaning I was not within the center of myself in my life to then give out to other things. Everything else was kind of in the center and I was on the outskirts. And so anything referencing me, I easily abandoned. So I had to learn how to stop abandoning myself. You know, I would easily, if there were things that I had to do and someone called me and was like, hey, I need you to do this. It didn't have to be like an emergency. Hey, I need you to do this. I would totally abandon everything that I was going to do, the whole entire situation I had set up for myself to go and do for others. If I wanted things and I wanted to experience things and I had suggestions, if it was vacation or trip or whatever, a night out or whatever, I would abandon that in order to appease other people in my life, because I was scared to be abandoned. I was scared to be rejected. You know, these very real concepts and things that I've had to continue to work on that led up to all of that. So I had to learn how to stop abandoning myself, stop putting myself and my agenda at the back of the line, at the bottom of the list, so that if anything came up, or if I was tired, instead of saying, okay, I'm tired, but I've got these things that I need to do for myself, I come first. No, it was like all of that goes out the window, and then I'm taking care of all the mommy stuff and all the wife stuff and all the employee stuff and everything else that I felt was more important, more valid than me validating myself and saying, no, I need rest, or I need fun, or I need to sit my ass down somewhere, or I need to work on my projects. And then, prioritizing that so that I could get that done for myself and be more self-fulfilled. So that was a process. I had to learn how to stop abandoning myself. Another thing that I had to do was I had to learn how to say no. That's just the part of not abandoning myself, to say no and to set boundaries. Growing up and going into motherhood and going into being a wife without, proper guidance, right knowledge, proper examples, I had no boundaries. I was like a house with no windows and no doors. So anything my husband needed, that's first. That for me, that wasn't healthy. For me, that wasn't healthy, because I was so used to being depleted and being in the deficit that it was getting to the point where things that I really needed to do for myself so that I could just be well, I would abandon that in order to fulfill something very simple, very minor, or just do what someone else was asking me to do. Do something my son was asking me to do when he didn't prioritize the things he needed to prioritize, when he wasn't doing the things he needed to do, when my husband wasn't doing the things that he needed to do. Then here I go stepping in because my fear was, well, I need to make sure everything is okay. No, I need to make sure I'm okay first. So I had to learn how to say no. I had to learn how to say no from a healthy place and say no without explanation. No, I can't do that. My favorite words in my 30s became, I can't, I cannot, I can't do it. There's no example. There's no explanation. I can't. And I even moved into, I can't, and I'm not going to help you figure out how. That's on you, because you're coming asking me to do something that you're supposed to be doing. You're asking for my assistance. I didn't drop the ball. So I had to learn how to say no from a healthy place within myself, to validate my own no, and then to set boundaries to say, okay, you know what? Like, for example, after a certain time in my house, I'm done. I'm off. Because it's not going to be 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm in, if I had a long, busy day and I'm in my quiet time and that person is bored or they can't sleep or whatever. And so here I got to come out of my quiet time in order to help. No, why don't you try this, try this, try this. Or if I'm doing something for myself, if I'm making some tea for myself to settle down, I'll make you some as well. But I had to learn how to set boundaries and be okay with those boundaries, come hell or high water. Because the thing that I had to learn about myself was I set up all of this, whether I did it intentionally, unintentionally, consciously, unconsciously. I set all that up. So in my first video, I talked about being accountable to myself, taking responsibility for myself, not taking responsibility and being accountable for what others were doing. They got to take responsibility and be accountable for that. But for myself, being accountable, taking responsibility, I had to learn how to do that, be accountable, take responsibility for myself, learn how to say no and be comfortable with it, learn how to set boundaries and be comfortable with it. And if you get mad, you just get mad, because I was living out of the roles of mother and wife and not living out of the core of myself as a woman who was in those roles. And those roles were empty. It was like the core of me, things can anchor to because I'm anchored in the core of me and it's strong. When I anchor things to my roles like daughter, friend, sister, mother, wife, and things are pulling on them, it can rip those roles apart. But if I anchor it to myself, because I'm Salima, the woman that all of these roles are being expressed through, when I anchor those to myself, it's a lot stronger, because then the role is facilitated from me. And I'm much stronger to handle those things than trying to put my consciousness into mommy and trying to anchor all of this other stuff to mommy. I hope that makes sense. Because I think that's what a lot of us are going through, is that we live in our tentacles and not in our body that feeds the tentacles, that controls and maneuvers the tentacles. And we put too much weight on the roles that we play. And then the other thing that I had to do so that I can learn to, and child, look, I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm looking at my notes. I'm looking at my notes because I don't remember all this, but I'm going to edit some things, to make, but I had to write this down. So that's when I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes. All right, shit. But I had to, in order to learn to put myself first, I had to start doing more of the things that I wanted to do. And I had to learn that was okay. Mommy, for me, being a mother, being a wife, were very sacrificial, like I said before in the other video. And it's sacrificial anyway. So I had to learn to feed and fuel the woman. I had to learn to feed and fuel my soul, Salima. Because Salima is then what was going to feed her energy out into the roles that she's playing, so that she could be good at it. She think that she could bring beneficial energy, love, and support to everything that was anchored to her. So I had to learn how to do more of what I wanted to do. In my 30s, as I was going through this process, I wanted to travel. And I didn't always get the opportunity to travel with my spouse or travel and do the family vacation stuff. So I had to learn to travel with my friends and be cool with that. I had to learn how to do the girls' trips and be happy about that, and be like, no, I'm not going to sit around and wait for somebody else to participate in the things that I want to do. I'm going to do them for myself. And I know that in this generation now, y'all got social media. I didn't have a lot of social media back then when I was growing up. Not in my 30s, but when I was growing up. So a lot of what I received in my exampling of being a woman who was a mother and a wife was sacrifice. I got that from my mom, got that from her friends, I got that from TV, got that from movies and the things that I had put in my view, in my vision. So I had to learn how to do solo dates. I had started dating myself in my 20s and back then it was like, you're going to eat by yourself? What? That was like almost unheard of. To go as a woman, especially, and go sit at the bar and just eat and dine by yourself, that was like, what? But now, of course, you go on solo dates, and I had to build that up in my 20s. And then in my 30s, when I was really moving into the meat of, because I've been married since I was 20. Since I was 22. Yeah. I've been married for almost 20 years, something like that. Yeah. I had to learn to be okay with, no, you don't need your son. You don't need to take him. He's old enough. He can go play with his friends. He can play with his aunts. He can go do the things that fulfill you. Go do what you like to do. I had to learn how to do that so that I could put myself first, because there was a time when I was a whatever you like type of woman. I want to, if I want to do something, let's go to the movies, because I want to go to the movies. And if he didn't want to go to the movies, I didn't go to the movies, things like that. And I had to break out of that. No, I'm going to the movies by myself because I want to go to the movies. I'm going to go walk around in the store and window shop by myself because I want to be able to go and take the time to look at the stuff I like to look at without interruption. I had to learn how to just be the woman first and put myself first. So just to recap, learning how in this video, putting myself first was the second thing that I learned to do in my 30s so that I could live in an energy of wellness and vibrancy in my 40s. And that included stopping abandoning myself, abandoning myself to what others wanted and needed me to do, learning how to say no and set boundaries from a healthy place, because no is a complete sentence, and then just learning and getting comfortable with going out and doing the things that I wanted to do as Salima that didn't have any shit to do with me being a wife and me being a mother. So that's this video. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to go into the third thing that I did and initiated in my 30s so that I could live in wellness and vibrancy in my 40s.